So we'll just get started. My name is Michelle Ray, and my Substack is called States of Matter. I am a teacher, writing coach, and really focus on writing craft, travel, and transformation. And I also provide a service called Discovery. I can't speak now. I also provide a service called Story Discovery, and that is sort of along the lines of writing coaching, but it's really like a lower barrier of entry. Like it's just getting you to think about a personal story and why it matters and how it can be kind of retold and incorporated into your own life and in a way that can help you connect to other people or even just reconnect yourself. So the point isn't to retell the timeline necessarily, but is to find out like specific moments and like really specific like visual or symbolic moments that can carry a lot of weight too. So I will let Danielle introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself, and then we'll get started. Okay.
Yeah, so thanks, Michelle. I'm really excited about this. So I'm Danielle. I kind of new to Substack, I would say. Been around since like April. So it's been just a few months, but I've always loved writing. I was big journaling, big in the 2000s blog era. When I kind of discovered Substack, I was like, oh, this would be kind of a cool creative outlet. And I am an IT project manager, specifically kind of focused on the Agile framework. So a lot of my publication is around kind of bringing that framework to real life. So I do a lot of like systems for just regular life stuff, a lot of reflections, which is why I was really interested in this. Um,
Mhm.
and just like implementing things in your day-to-day life that kind of apply to that, and then just kind of for the overthinkers, the perfectionists, and those type of people that have trouble kind of starting things. That's kind of what my publication is about. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like something that's very relatable. I could use a little bit more digging into your Substack.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we'll just get started because we want to make sure we can get into it as much as possible. So, you filled out your survey before the session, and you said you wanted to focus on your fertility journey, and that was, over a few years, and it involved, I'm sure a lot more than you wrote on the survey.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just start with something kind of broad, like a backdrop, which is, can I take us back or take me back to 2019? Um, what was going on? Where were you in your life before you started trying to get pregnant? And, you know, what did you think the chapter would look like? Like, what did you envision for that moment?
Yeah. So I was like 2019, I had been married about a year, and I'm a planner by nature. So I was like, okay, great, we'll get married, and then like, we'll start trying for a family around 2019. And I was like 31 at the time. And I'm like, yeah, this is gonna work out. We're gonna have two kids, like everything is gonna be great. And I'd never really even thought about being like infertile or not able to get pregnant. So I was kind of like, it was like the vision was what everybody has, or I shouldn't say everybody, but if you want kids, obviously, like a lot of girls when they're growing up, they're like, oh, I'm going to be a mom one day, and you
Yeah.
just never think that, you see the movies and stuff, and you just don't think that there's going to be all these like steps to get there. So yeah, the vision was like just your typical, like, okay, this is just exactly how it's going to work out. I'm going to have like two kids before I turn 35 and we're good. So that was what was in my head completely for a long time. So it happened, but,
Yeah.
but
So I guess kind of like up until that point, you felt like things were kind of operating in the way you had planned. You
yeah,
kind
yeah. I think when I was in my early 20s, I was like, oh, I'm never going to meet anybody. And then I met my husband, and then like it all, it started to all like come together in a way. And I was like, okay. And, I wasn't totally sure about like when the family stuff, but I knew like once I like turned 30 and once I got married, it like felt more like I was ready, quote unquote.
of,
So it just seemed like that was like the trajectory. Like I was like, okay, like we're gonna like enjoy married life for like a year, and then we'll like start talking about family stuff. We'll travel and do all that. So yeah, in my head, I was like, all right, this is just the next like logical
Next
step.
logical step, next box.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So these are kind of like two questions together. Um, when you first sensed there was something wrong, like things weren't going along like the way you expected, what did you do, and how did it differ from what you normally do? Like, so when you're in your normal life and something doesn't go the way you're expected, what do you do, and how did this particular situation did it differ? Because it's
Um,
personal and
yeah, yeah. So this was hard in the beginning, I would say, because I think I and I'm just like looking at the comments because the the guys probably this is probably not a like a guy conversation. I totally get that, so I'm not offended. But no, when it first started to happen, I was like, I can't really talk to anybody about this because like a lot of my none of my friends that I knew like really went through that. Um,
Mhm.
all my friends had kids or all my friends were like, it was all happening naturally and like everything was going according to plan. So,
Yeah,
of course, like I never thought, I would have issues or anything. So I was just like, okay, I mean, I guess maybe this is, what's kind of my next steps,
yeah,
from this point. And then, the statistics is like they give it a year or two. I guess if you're under 35, I think it was like give it a year before you just start trying to do other things and try to seek professional help. And I always thought like fertility doctors were strictly just for IVF, which I learned that's not the case. So in my head, I was like, no, I don't need professional help. Like I
yeah,
need to just, see what happens next. So
yeah. So yeah, it sounds like you didn't overreact
yeah,
in
yeah,
any way. So that's, yeah, so that's good to know. So, it, without going into everything that happened
yeah,
after that, because there were quite a few steps,
right.
like what would you say? Like, is there an image or a moment that plays back in your mind that kind of represents this time, before you were successful with your pregnancy?
I would say like probably the most impactful thing was something like my fertility doctor always said to me during the process, and it was like kind of her quote for everything was hold the vision and trust the process. And at the time, you hear that and you're like, okay, like whatever. But she ended up being right about it. And I think at the time it was just hard to see because it had been years of different methods, different treatments, different everything. And I feel like you get to a point that, you want to give up, but in my heart, I'm like, I knew that I wanted to like keep going and keep pursuing like anything, to kind of get this to happen. So,
Yeah,
and just kind of exhaust all options, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. And this kind of quote from the doctor is, I mean, it's very universal, right? Like,
Yeah,
hold the vision, trust the process. Like you said earlier, it's sort of like this this whole process that you went through is very applicable to any challenging journey or moment in someone's life. So
right.
that's why, like, even though it's specifically about issues with infertility, I think anyone can relate to this situation. um,
Totally.
so hold the vision, trust the process. So were you like envisioning the doctor? Were you hearing it in your head? Were you just repeating it back to yourself all the time? How did
I
that?
think like going through everything, it is a process, and the one thing about it is you can go through, all the treatments and everything on paper because IVF is like very scientific. So, and there's a lot of logical steps, and everything is medication, and it's very very industrial scientific type of stuff, and you can check all the boxes on paper, but one thing is like it may not work out, like it's not 100% ever. So all of the treatments might look fine and it might look like, oh, this should work, there should be no reason that this doesn't help,
Yeah,
and I think those moments when it didn't work or it wasn't helpful or we didn't have the outcome we wanted, it that was harder to like see that, so having that as a reminder, I tried, but it was a struggle to hold on to hope. I think that there was moments where I, stopped and I just kind of gave up, in a sense, just took a break from even thinking about all of that, but yeah, it's one of those things that you just do. It's all down to timing, and I think that was the hardest thing, though. It's definitely holding on to hope when it was just consistently like not happening.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I heard kind of two things that I think could be important, especially like in a retelling.
yeah,
Two, I automatically see like a binary, like the systemic process and medical aspect of it that should be like, if you follow this procedure, this will happen, right?
totally.
But then on the other side, there's the emotions and the expectations and the whole myth of I'm a woman, I should just get pregnant. That's what the fairy tales told me. So like those
Totally.
two things coming like together in the story, I think could be really compelling. So it's just showing how like the back and forth in your mind and like with your partner as well. I think.
Yeah.
Sort of like the expectation versus the reality of the situation, which also is a very universal concept, I think.
Yeah, and I think one thing too is, and I always told people this, is like, you have a treatment plan or whatever, and that's like the month, and you think it's the month, and then if you're a planner like me, it's you think 9 months in advance, right? And you're like, okay, we're gonna do this. This is when the baby shower is. This is when everything is gonna happen. This is when the birth could be, and then I would start to change plans because I was like already planning my life as if I were getting pregnant. And I think that was the hardest part, because when that would not happen, like
Mhm.
any plan, like that just crushed everything that I made this whole vision up in my head.
Right.
And then that was the hardest part for me, is that kept happening. And then I would just be like disappointed. So
Right.
everything that I imagined was not true.
Right. Yeah. So you kept repeating the same process of like building it up and having this big vision, and then it goes
Totally.
right.
Yeah.
And Bill says emotions, expectations, and hope. Right.
Well, I saw
So,
I saw Alex join,
so
which,
relatable. You know, Alex.
yeah, Alexandra Bianco. She's my Substack friend. She's the
All
one that
right.
I do podcasts with her. So
All right, welcome,
yeah, so
Thomas
she
and
joined.
Alex and Bill and Esther. Thank you for joining. And Pappy Jack, thank you for joining. Although he doesn't think he should be in this conversation, it's,
I
it's a
think
universal thing.
Puppy Jack was probably like, I gotta go. This is not the kind of conversation. I get it.
Well,
We're
I mean,
talking about,
but we might as well bring it up. Like, what was going on with your husband? Like, when you tell the story, you're going to have your husband. Is he in there? Like, how is he responding to all?
yeah, so his biggest thing was seeing me like disappointed about everything. That was the hardest part for him. Just knowing that there wasn't really a lot he could do besides just be there for me as support, and be willing to like do whatever we needed to do to try everything. Um, but yeah, it's definitely different for the husband, because they're not going like, and infertility affects both, but it's more
Right.
common in the woman, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard when you're not having to go through everything. Just like pregnancy, fertility is similar. Like all the procedures are me, all of all the doctor's appointments are more about me. But
Right.
just having his support was the biggest part of that. And just knowing like we were in it together. We were like, this is, something that we both want. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So, um, all right. Well, I wanted to move on to another
Yeah.
question because I think another thing about this issue is that there's what your mind is perceiving, and then what your mind is perceiving about the situation, but also what your mind is perceiving about your body and what your body is capable
Yeah.
of. Um, so how did it change? How did your beliefs about your body like change, or what were they, and how did may they have changed during the process?
Yeah, there was a lot of frustration in the beginning. Obviously before IVF and just going through it. I was like, I don't understand. Like, as a woman, like you're supposed to just be able to get pregnant. Why is this not working? So there was a lot of like, I wouldn't say I was like super negative, because I'm a pretty positive person. I just try to stay like hopeful as much as I could, but it was
Yeah.
tough. It was tough under and I think what happens and the type of person I am, I try to fix everything and I try to find the reason why. And that's one thing. So it was unexplained infertility. And
Mhm.
that is a literal diagnosis, which is not really a diagnosis. I mean, it is terrible that they do this
That's
because
horrible.
it
Yeah.
doesn't tell you anything, because yeah, everything they check everything, and when all the boxes are checked and there's no real reason, um, they just try everything, and there wasn't like really an explanation. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, what natural stuff can I do? So I went down the functional medicine route. I went down,
Yeah.
so in my head, I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And there's books out there about egg quality. And I mean, I did everything there was to do to help your fertility. I did it. And I feel like that is also a very stressful thing to do to yourself because you're trying everything and it didn't matter. So,
Right. Right. And it seems like it was worse, with this unexplained thing.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you knew that it was, something to do with your ovulation or whatever, like
right.
you would know and you could work on it, or there's
Yeah, like if it's
medically fixed.
PCOS or if it's like a specific thing, they usually have like a certain procedure, right? And yeah, it was just yeah, when they tell you it's unexplained and they don't really know why it's not happening, it's even worse because you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Like this is,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's transition because um, without dealing with like all the medical stuff, eventually you did become pregnant, and well, you have your baby. I'm not exactly
yeah,
sure how
yeah,
you got pregnant,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so that was the moment. Like, take us to that moment where you like, was that kind of a last resort? The IVF,
Yes.
and
So like I said, yeah, again, we went through a lot. It was about 4 years total of just on and off treatments, natural treatments, everything else. And yeah, like I said before, the fertility doctor, they can test everything. They don't have to. So IVF is usually their last step. So they do a lot of stuff before that. So, and I didn't know that at first. So that was good to kind of go early in like 2020 is when we first saw her. But yeah, so we tried everything and we got to the point that she was like, okay, I think IVF is your next step. And I was really very extremely nervous about it. I just had heard it's really hard to deal with. So I was like I was unsure about the whole thing, but I was like, you know what? I've got to try this because I'll never be able to live with myself if I don't at least take this step. So yeah, in 2022, we went through the process. Late 2022 we started, and then 2023, we go through the egg retrieval, and then we planned the embryo transfer, and then it worked on the first try, which
wow.
is pretty rare. And I
Mhm.
say I'm like lucky, but I mean,
Yeah.
it
On
was
a
a long
sliding scale of
journey.
luck. Yeah.
Yeah, but like anyone that's done IVF, a lot of them have to do multiple cycles, right? But yeah, um, but I approached this a lot differently than I did any other previous treatments. Because I was like almost desperate in the early days, especially when it wasn't working. And this was more of like, okay, we're gonna go into this like exactly, we're gonna follow exactly what they want us to do. And yes, we're hopeful, but like I'm also not gonna freak out if it doesn't work. So I was like, let's just do this calmly. Let's take steps and be hopeful, but not get our hopes up too high. Cause yeah, you get to a point in the journey that you're like, I don't want to get my hopes up too high. And
Yeah.
I was there. So yeah, but it first try and yeah, it worked in 2023. So
And you have your little girl now.
yeah, boy.
Boy,
But
oh, I think she's
yeah,
a little
it's
girl.
all right. It's all right. But yeah, no, he's 2.5. So he was born in 2024. So yeah, the pregnancy was okay. And I went through some stuff after. He was a bigger baby. He was like 11 pounds, 6 ounces. So
Wow.
yeah, he was a big guy. And I ended up with like postpartum preeclampsia, like pregnancy stuff happened after, and I was like, okay, this is just, it was just overall a long journey. But it's crazy now because I look back at the whole journey to him. And when I was in it, it was like all I thought about. Like I was like consumed by it. And now that I'm a mom, I look back at it and I'm like, well, being a mom is a whole nother level of challenge, that I didn't know then, obviously. So yeah, it was, and I mean, I say that like obviously being grateful for him, clearly.
Yes.
But it's just like a different transition in life. I feel like I'm in a different chapter completely than what I was before him.
Yeah.
And yeah, but the journey to him was like obviously it's crazy to think about now because he's been here for 2.5 years. And but in the early days I was like, is this real? Like, for a while. So
Right. Because it sounds like it was all consuming, right? It's just consuming
yeah,
life.
I absolutely had to take breaks because I got very obsessed with it, and it just got to the point where I was like, "This is not healthy." And, I got to the point before we did IVF that I was like, "All right, if this is, like, just not in the cards for me, like, it's okay." I got kinda to that acceptance place where I was like, if I'm not meant to be, like, a mom naturally this way, like, whether it's I'm, like, a dog mom or maybe we adopt down the road, like, those options were starting to come to my head, and I
Right.
was starting to accept it, So I was like, "It's okay," but I felt like I at least have to try this one more time, because I was
Yeah.
not gonna be one of those people that did it 15 times. Like, it just that's not the type like, I don't think I could have put
No.
myself through that. But yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah,
As people do. People go through a lot of
yeah.
rounds, and
And I'm
so
like,
it's
kudos
good.
to them, but I, like, couldn't do more than a couple cycles, I feel. It's a lot on your body, it's just
It
a lot,
is.
so
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Well, thinking back, like you said that it all makes sense now. So when did you understand? When did that understanding actually arrive?
yeah, like, I would say, it took me a while, like, during the pregnancy to, like, accept that it actually happened because so many years I was like, "This is not gonna," I went to so many baby showers, all my friends were having kids, some of my friends were on their 2nd kids, and a lot of my friends were really careful around telling me they were getting pregnant because they knew that I was struggling. So that was always very interesting. So then after, when I was pregnant finally, it was like everything was very surreal through the whole pregnancy. And because I knew it was probably going to be the only time, because I was like, I don't know if I could do this again. I just made sure the whole journey was what I would want. So I did everything. I did the baby shower, I did maternity photos, I took a ton of pictures, I made sure that, like, I totally embraced, like, the whole pregnancy because I was like, "Yeah, this probably isn't happening for me again," and I was just, like, super thankful that it got to that point, so, but yeah, it was a surreal experience. And, the whole thing just after the fact and looking back and being like, because with IVF, they give you the little, it's like a little container that the embryos are in, and it's just wild to even think like, okay, it was like, and on the transfer, it's like a very tiny, tiny, you can't even see it with your own eye. And it's like the fact that that becomes a human is insanely wild. And that's like the
Yeah.
scientific piece that I never would ever have thought about in my life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, it was such a good outcome.
Yeah.
So the last question is, this is kind of getting to the whole like taking a step back, zooming out. Like, what do you see as the, like a universal message? Like how is somebody who is not familiar or done or even wants to read about this process, what could they take away from the journey that you went through?
I think, like, even if you're not obviously going through fertility issues or whatever, but I know going through this, I learned there was a lot of people that were in this, just people don't talk about it, which clearly there's people, like, it's not the most comfortable thing that people talk about. And the reason I did share it, and I think I mentioned I shared on my personal social media, like when I was going through the journey, which really helped because people would reach out and, say stuff like supportive or they had been through it. But I think the thing I took out of it that you can apply to anything is, and it's cliche really, but it's just to like not give up on something that you're really, really like feel in your gut that you want. or, and if it's out of your control, like I felt like mine was, um, at least exhaust all options so you're not left with like a question. And I think that's why I went the IVF route, because I was like, I don't want to be 10, 15 years down the line and go, oh man, like I wish I would have done IVF to see if this would have worked. And it turns out for me, if I didn't do that, like my son wouldn't be here. So I'm forever grateful for it. But yeah, I think that can apply to anything you're doing in your life. If it feels like something that, you want to give up on, but you're like in your gut, it's like something that you really, really want to do, and you have like a passion, and it's just something. And I think about stuff on Substack just because I know a lot of people on here are creators, and it feels like you're kind of grinding away and no one's listening. It could be applied to that a little bit. I think you have to believe in yourself and just keep going, not give up.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
for sure. And I think too, like a lot of it is, this, you assume this is a natural process that anyone should be able to do, but you had to go through such a arduous journey.
yeah.
So I think, that I'm sure writers, anyone that's a creator could understand that. Like,
Yeah.
because creating is very natural. Like being creative is a natural thing, but there, getting people to listen and read and having an audience and all of that, like that's a whole different story, right?
Totally.
And do you even need that? Do you want, like, there's so many things to contend with there. So
Right.
I just wanted to shout out our people here. So
Yeah.
we have Brandon here, and he says it's kind of like seeking answers for why someone dies. Sometimes there is no answer. Oh
That's
my boy.
true. That's very true.
Yeah, and I blame our society for making us think that we should know the answers to everything because
It's true. I know. And I'm at fault for that too. I just always, with anything that goes wrong with me, I'm always looking for the why. And sometimes there isn't really an answer.
yeah, or sometimes not having the answer is
Yeah. Yeah.
the why.
And I mean the timing, and again, like I was raised Catholic. I'm not super religious now, but I, believe in God and stuff. And I do feel like the timing was where it was supposed to be, because if anything went according to my plan, we would have been in the middle of the pandemic, and I would have had to go through pregnancy and having a baby by myself for the first time. And that would have been a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
So,
whole nother
there's silver lining in
challenges.
everything and every story. And I think about that now. I was able to have the pregnancy I wanted, the baby shower, like all of that stuff, and celebrate like actually the pregnancy. So the way that I wanted to. So yeah, that the timing now makes more sense. And I feel like back then, even though I thought I was ready, I feel like now made more sense where I was at in life as well. So I
Yeah,
think that played a part.
yeah, and all of that, all the difficulty of you know getting pregnant and all the trials and tribulations, like that's kind of nothing compared to a 3-year-old that you're gonna.
Totally. And I was trying to say that without like sounding like, man, you just went through all this crap and you're like, now you're saying your motherhood is hard. And to be honest, like it was hard for me, especially when I first had my son. Like, I mean, anyone that's a mom knows of the shock that, it doesn't matter. You could be all ready. Like I had everything in the nursery, everything was ready, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And
Yeah,
I
that's the
like,
problem.
you're totally thrown for a loop. And in my head, the whole time I was like, I wanted this. Like, I tried so hard for this. Why am I upset? Like, or whatever. And that's like a whole thing is postpartum. You're just not prepared. But yeah, I look at this now and I'm like, my life is so much more challenge. Like, it just put it in perspective that I was like,
Yeah,
okay, the journey was difficult. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't wish that on anyone. It is hard. But
yeah,
um, yeah, having having a toddler is another level.
yeah.
So
It is. There's such a Yeah, it's a challenge, and every stage is a challenge, and it has its own beautiful aspects as well.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think oh god, I had something in my mind to say, but it's gone. And menopause is an extra challenge because
That's
I'm
what I
dealing with
hear
it now.
too. I'm like,
It's just
oh
like I'll be
man.
thinking of something and then it's just gone, just goes away. Anyway, all right. So no, that what I had another question or two, but let's just go to the last thing, which is so I kind of have this idea of like a few images and ideas that the way that you could tell a story, but like how do you see the story working, for you and for other people? Like how would you want to use the story in your life?
Yeah, like I did write I was writing about it. Like I did have a blog on it for a little bit. And I
Mhm.
didn't get to the point where I went through IVF, but I was using like social media as like kind of like mini updates, and I would write kind of long posts about it. But I have been thinking about how can I like capture this, right? And I'm like a storyteller, and I do keep a lot of like the details. So like I have, the details of like every step of the journey. I think for me, obviously I would bring that up a level because,
Yeah.
depending on your audience, you don't need to get in the weeds. Like obviously if there's somebody that cares that much, but yeah, it's definitely more about capturing like the bigger parts of the journey and just like how much time and like just each stage of it, like how much like where I was mentally, I guess, for every stage, because in the
Yeah.
beginning you're excited and you're like, this is going to be great, like things are going to happen before you're 35 and you're going to be fine, and then just like realizing that nothing went according to plan, um all those bumps in the road, and then eventually getting to the point where you have to do your kind of last resort. And then at the end of it, just like obviously getting like your miracle at the end of the story. So, um, yeah, it's a cool, it's definitely an inspirational story. I think if I heard this, and that's what I always try to tell people, I'm very open about it. Like obviously I'm going live talking about it. But yeah, I know with my current publication, it's not really like my niche. Like if I don't really talk about motherhood as much, it's not really like the angle. I use it obviously because I am a mom. But and I've mentioned it in a few posts, but I didn't
Yeah.
and I've thought about like actually writing it just as kind of an off post, because I do think it is something that people are starting to talk about more, and the women's fertility and all of that. And I think people really do need the support, because not it's a little bit niche still. Like I know people are going through it, but
Yeah.
um there's not a lot of information about it out there. I mean, now
Yeah.
there is, but when I was going through it was like, you had to kind of search. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see this story being, you know, multifunctional, like you, as a story for, for you, a touchstone sort of thing, but also to reach out to people who have gone through the same thing and, or who are going through it. But also, with like shorter versions almost being created to be like universal, like there are things like you said, like you have to hold the vision for.
right.
Um, and so I feel like with our lives, like there are so many um, moments in our life that are like these touchstone moments, and I think people feel like maybe they just they have like one story, they write about that story, and then they move on. But I feel like I'm writing and rewriting events in my life like all the time.
Yeah.
And I always like feel like this could be like a really good like origin story too.
Yeah.
And like so I was just encouraged to, and we can kind of wrap it up, but like when I was listening to you, I was just hearing a lot of um s- expectations versus reality, um and images. Like I can just see these images of like the medical, like the harshness of the medical world, like the medical smells, being in waiting rooms, love that, like versus like going home and the talking to your friends and the emotions, like so I think that juxtaposition through the story
Yeah.
would also be really effective to show like just the swinging of emotions and situations that you have to deal with, and that's also life too, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that would be awesome actually. Yeah, that's exactly how it went, right? Because there
Yeah.
was a lot of up and downs, and yeah, early on there was hope, and then it was gone, and there was hope and then it was gone. So it was a roller coaster for sure. And you always just think like every chance you're like hopeful, and then it's like
Right.
you're let down. So And then, yeah, like I changed, and that's the reason I chose this story, because it was probably one of the most like obviously becoming a mom was as well, but this was just one of the most impactful times of my life because it was the hardest journey up until motherhood, I would feel, but it was like the hardest thing I've ever gone through, just as a person. And I just have noticed like how I've changed since then and how I've approached situations since then. And just having it just makes you realize like you can get through anything. I know that's very cliche, but most
Mhm.
things will work themselves out and it may not make sense right away. And I've just learned to kind of let go of the official plans and just kind of follow
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah. Yeah. All good messages. And I think people that know you as well, like they it's even more powerful for them, right? Because like
yeah,
if she's letting something go, she's not playing.
right. It's
So
true. Yeah, that's definitely not I'm very, very type A, very planner, very organized. So this was a total loop thrown, but that was the lesson for me, right? Is like you can't plan everything
yeah.
and it's just not gonna work out how you envision it always. But that's
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes it's usually better at the end. And like I said, I think the timing makes sense to me now. It's all hindsight, but yeah, I definitely. And my son is who he is, and the timing was he's here, and it's like he wouldn't be here if it was any other time. So I always think about that every
Yeah.
day.
It wouldn't be that boy.
Yeah,
Like
it wouldn't be him.
that's
So
yeah.
yeah, so it's like you have to you think about all of those things. And
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah. No, like I had my child when I was 45, four. I was 44.
oh wow.
And I mean, it was just, I just accidentally got pregnant. And
That's
I
cool
mean,
though.
and so I always like whenever I see older people trying to get pregnant, I'm like, it's not a great idea to wait, but it can happen, like it can still happen. Like, don't give up because sometimes
Yeah,
you're geriatric, you're too geriatric to have a baby.
totally. And it's like I feel like now it's very way more common for women in their like late 30s, 40s to have it, whether it's because of infertility or just because they didn't want to run
There's
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just waiting,
Yeah.
like I just didn't meet the person. I traveled a lot, I just never had the time. I want to say I never had the time, but I just didn't, I never made it a priority because
Right.
what I wanted at the time. But, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I hope you do write it and I'll send you some notes from our conversation
Yeah.
and when you write it, you can, tag me
Yeah, no,
so
this
I
was
can
this
read
was
it.
awesome. You like
Yeah.
made me think about it differently. And yeah, no, I love like going through stories and stuff. So this was
Yeah.
this was really good.
Yeah, and I think you're a good speaker too. Like you're a really good, clear
Okay.
speaker. So I think telling it like on your podcast
Someone
is
else told me that, and I was like, I know I say like a lot, and I know I talk like I'm in person. So I think it's
I
nice.
didn't notice. I didn't
Yeah.
notice filler. Like sometimes when people use fillers, I notice, but I didn't
Yeah.
notice fillers. That you were. I mean, you just seemed very clear in
Yeah.
your thoughts and in the way you expressed yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I knew I was like, I could talk about this journey for a while. So I knew I had enough detail to talk
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
So
You didn't
yeah.
make it weird, right, guys? She didn't
Yeah,
make
I felt like
it
I was like, getting on, I was like, oh, some people might be like, what the hell is she talking about? But no,
well,
I feel like
you
in
know.
our nowadays, people talk about a lot of different things. So I
Oh,
feel
they
like,
do. Talk
yeah,
about way, more personal stuff than this or
yeah,
whatever. So
yeah.
yeah.
I know that the comment above made me laugh because he was like,
What?
I'm out.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that one. Mine was
Poppy Jack. He's like,
oh,
I'm
yeah.
not qualified for this
I'm not qualified for
conversation.
this conversation. Yeah, I know.
I get
Well,
it. I get it.
thank you all for joining us. We're probably
Yeah,
about to
thanks. Oh, I see
go.
David join. He's from my Substack. Peeps, Brandon.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
good, John.
Bill.
It's like there's like definitely a balance of more men than women on
I
this
know,
call,
and
which
they're
is
probably like, what was this story? Sorry for the guys. I feel
but
like
it's about holding space for something and finding
that's
you're
true.
never giving up.
You may have a friend that goes through this and now you'll be
Yeah,
able to support
yeah,
them better.
yeah. And it's about becoming a subscriber of Michelle Ray and Danielle, right?
Yeah,
They're touching
exactly.
stories, because yeah, we're very worthy Substacks for you to check out. And I do the stories discovery session is part of my paid subscriber, perk, and yeah, you can just check it out. And I
Yeah,
also do these live sessions for free too. Just if you're willing to do it on live, then it's free.
yeah. No,
Because
I
I want to kind of spread the word and just show people like how to kind of talk through something and figure out like the different ways you can tell a story and why it's important, like your purpose for telling it and what you want people to get out of it. I think sometimes are things that differ, but both are important.
right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, yeah, I can apply to, and so many people have such cool stories. I don't know how many you've done of these, but I'm sure you learn a lot about people. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've done 3 or 4 online, and
Okay.
yeah, and I think people. I've done on some online, I've done some offline, and I
Okay.
feel like I don't know, maybe online people have been a little bit more like, I don't know, it's like taking it up a notch, like they're more serious about
Yeah. Yeah.
it, which I kind of like. I like that effect, right? Like they're
Right.
taking it more seriously. They're not gonna go, it's just like a random call and like cooking mug, So
Yeah.
anyway, if anybody's interested, you can yeah, just DM me.
Yeah. Definitely subscribe to
Yeah,
Michelle.
just subscribe to both.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Well,
this is
thanks
great.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And just what about your podcast? What's your podcast? It's
Oh
just
yeah, so I started this about a month ago, but it's called Between the Sprints. So I talk on there about I kind of have a random episode every week. This week I did release something called it's a sprint showcase. It's called, so I'm getting writers to and say writers, anyone, writers, builders, people doing products. I'm trying to feature them. So I'm trying to either do written posts, it's whatever they're comfortable with. So I took the advice I think somebody said in our coaching call the other day. I was like, well, I don't think everyone's going to want to do video, but so I'm giving options. Like if they want to do video, if they want to do an article. So yeah, so I've got some people that volunteered. So it's just to basically showcase their whatever they're doing. So it could be like a book they're writing, even if it's not ready. The whole
right.
point of this is to show kind of like the messy middle of it and like celebrate the progress to kind of get people to, understand that like just because you're not finished with something doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah.
So,
No,
and
that's great. Yeah. The
yeah, so we're
process,
doing
right?
yeah, so we're
Celebrating the
doing that.
process.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just put that out this week and yeah, I've got some people like interested in that. But yeah, if anyone's got something going on, a product like an app or, obviously like I'm not like I don't have a huge list of subscribers, but
Yeah.
I'm planning on like, really helping people because the reason I'm doing this is in, software development teams, which I'm used to working. We develop something and every 2 weeks or something we show like what the product is. So it's kind of like that same concept.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's great.
yeah,
It's a great idea.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll check it out then.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. And thank you everybody for joining us.
yeah.
We'll
Thanks so
sign
much,
off.
guys.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye bye.
Michelle. Okay, bye.